are the other key behaviors to cultivate intentional relationships? Number 3 would be the behavior that I would call tools. Number 1 is telling. Number 2 is targets. Number 3 is tools. And what I mean by tools is this. We provide in our church resources and pathways for individuals to engage God personally. Success in this behavior would require understanding that environments are not narrowly defined as only church programs in the 4 walls of the church that are planned by the staff or the leadership or the pastors. So individual discipleship outcomes are clearly identified and resourced appropriately. So when you identify the outcome and it's been clearly identified, success would require that these things are resourced appropriately by the church leaders. Great effort and care is put into delivering a variety of resources that can be consumed based on individual circumstances or individual access to technology, books, podcasts, articles, videos, and so on. So if a church is strong in this area, then they would have a leadership team that broadly defines disciple-making environments. And those definitions of environments would have to go beyond merely the church programming that appears on a calendar. I like to say this way, it's what happens in between Sundays where you have the resources to grow on your own. Most likely, a church that is strong in this particular behavior, this church has outlined individual discipleship outcomes that are clearly communicated to the congregation, and they are robustly resourced. Now, here's a warning. The church cannot and probably shouldn't program for an individual's spiritual disciplines. In other words, someone has their own grow on your own responsibility as they kind of learn to nourish themselves in spiritual disciplines and in relationship with God and with other people. Those spiritual disciplines cannot be programmed for individuals, but the church can emphasize the need for them, regular spiritual habits and so on, and often offer resources, recommended resources, tools, ways in which they can be kind of accessed in this particular desired outcome. Now, if you're a church who is mediocre in this area, you may have a leadership team that has not clearly defined disciple-making environments and rely heavily on formal church programming. In other words, these things are planned by the staff, they are put on the calendars, and requires someone with a key to open the space and lock up the space, or to provide calendars to tell people when this particular aspect is occurring. Now, most likely your church encourages individual faith engagement, but if you're a mediocre in this particular behavior, you have yet to outline individual discipleship outcomes. What does it look like after these particular tools and resources are being used? What does it look like? What is the outcome of that? So it's also likely that this leads to misaligned and inconsistent resourcing for personal growth. Now, if your church is weak in this particular behavior, it's possibly because you have a leadership team that narrowly defines disciple-making environments as merely formal church programming. Most likely, your church leadership plans and relies solely on these events, these formal church office-generated programs to teach and to grow your congregation, often or regularly neglecting any resourcing for grow on your own personal growth in between Sundays or in between Wednesdays or in between big church calendar programs. So that is one of the other character traits, one of the behaviors that helps cultivate intentional environments.